One.
Before I begin today's video, I'd just like to make a public, sincere apology to my friend, Sad Panda. For anyone who doesn't know what this is, in my last video, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, I misspelled Panda's name in the credit sequence. Panda, you are my friend and my brother, and I sincerely apologize for any hurt I may have caused you or your family with this error of mine. Not that anybody else probably noticed, I mean, because, well, you know, it's you. But you've got to admit yourself, you didn't handle it all that professionally. I mean, you could have messaged me and just said, you know, why did you misspell my name? But no, you went on Twitter and bitched about it. What has bitching on Twitter ever gotten anyone ever? What have you got to say for yourself?
I'm a twat.
Yes. Yes, you are. God, I'm going to get so much mileage out of that clip. This is also the first video I'm able to release that I know my friend Bryn is able to watch because it's not a horror film. Hi, Bryn. Anyone out there is obviously in the dark right now. Bryn is responsible for me owning Rob the monkey because she gave him to me. Today's video is going to be the 1993 version of The Three Musketeers, starring Charlie Sheen and Kiefer Sutherland. Growing up, I knew of The Three Musketeers, although my introduction to them came from
One for all and all for one. Musket hands are always ready.
I love this show. It was a staple of my Wednesday afternoons in front of the TV. The adventures of D'Artagnan and his journey to become a musketeer. Looking at it now, the animation and the voice acting is fairly terrible. But it was a great show, and I was at that age where sword fighting of any sort was just really cool to watch. And while I did eventually watch the 1973 Oliver Reed feature film version, D'Artagnan was always the version I would look back on, as it was my introduction to the world of the Musketeers. Since then, I have seen the 1993 version and The Man in the Iron Mask, and I'm not ashamed to say the 1993 version is my favourite. I was 11 when the film was released, and it was released through Disney, so it was primarily targeted towards children, and I was in the perfect age group to watch it. The sword fights looked great, and as I hadn't been beaten down by a cynical society to question the ifs and buts of the films, I just really enjoyed it. Looking at it now, you'd question how a blind monk couldn't notice the Cardinal Richelieu was evil.
Impressive.
Why would Constance fall in love on a chance meeting? How come no one in Paris sounds French? Or why does the assassin use the roof and not a window? But hell, suspend your disbelief for an hour and 20 minutes and just enjoy the film. It reminds me a lot of the first pirate movie, an enjoyable romp with fun characters that doesn't take itself too seriously. And interesting I compare it to the Pirates films because Oliver Platt completely steals the film as Porthos and was Jack Sparrow before Jack Sparrow was even a glint in Johnny Depp's eye.
Don't tell me you've never heard of me.
The key factor to the film is fun, helped by a great chemistry between the three leads, all of whom help elevate the film with their performances. And while not perfect by a long way, it is enjoyable. Very enjoyable. It also, unlike the newer version of the tale, gives each musketeer a character to play with. Porthos is the adventurer, Aramis the wise man of God, and Athos the crusty beaten down dark horse with a secret. Yet together, they form a great team. And while the story is told through D'Artagnan's eyes, the musketeers are truly the heart of the tale. As for the only weak link in the film for me, that would be Chris O'Donnell. He was young when he played the role, and was able to take that fearless youth side of D'Artagnan and work with it. But while the cast of Sheen, Sutherland and Platt seem to be having a ball with their roles, playing them with tongue firmly in cheek, O'Donnell doesn't seem to be able to get that balance, which leaves him as kind of an annoyance and someone you just want to see punched in his smug face. Thankfully, the filmmakers were aware of this, or they just subconsciously felt it, because they have him get his ass kicked on more than one occasion, and I am very thankful for this.
Idiot.
The film opens in the swampy sewers of underground Paris that seem to also have been fitted with the latest in cutting-edge smoke machinery. It's here that we're introduced to Cardinal Richelieu, played by Tim Curry, supposed man of God, but given that he's wearing red and he has a beard and moustache combo that he spends the whole film twirling, it's clear right from the off that this is your bad guy. We also meet Rochefort, played by Michael Wincott, a former musketeer and now Richelieu's personal bitch as he tortures thieves on Richelieu's behalf.
Please, I was hungry. My family hasn't eaten for days. Please.
Showing his human side, Richelieu takes in the prisoner's words and then grants him his request.
One less mouth to feed.
Moving along, we're introduced to D'Artagnan, played by Chris O'Donnell, as he drills Gerard, played by the Eighth Doctor himself, Paul McCann, turning in a performance that seemed to inspire John Travolta for Battlefield Earth.
Fantasy! D'Artagnan! Spell your name!
Gerard is pissed because D'Artagnan apparently has been doing the dirty with his sister, which has led to the particular duel, and also drops some plot points regarding D'Artagnan himself.
All I want to do is get to Paris, join the Musketeers.
And a little backstory.
My father was a Musketeer, the king's personal bodyguard.
The king was assassinated. Your father was a failure.
Being a high-pitched red-headed annoyance, D'Artagnan easily disarms Gerard, but thanks to an appearance by his brothers, D'Artagnan mounts up and dispatches of the brothers one by one, and Gerard himself, in a fun little sequence to get the crowd going, and to showcase D'Artagnan as cocky, a good fighter, and a good rider. It also highlighted the problem I have with D'Artagnan himself. I just find him very unlikable. He's cocky, sure, and it is possible to play cocky and still be likable. And part of the journey is how the hero starts out cocky and then becomes a more rounded character, a more of a team player, a nicer individual. But O'Donnell really doesn't seem to be able to pull that off, and it's through the film that he seems to take a back step, and the only reason he becomes likeable is because the Musketeers start to dominate the film. Also, he gets his ass kicked on more than one occasion, which makes him much more easier to stomach. Moving back to Paris, due to Richelieu's scheming and his slow takeover of the country, the Musketeer flag is burned and the Musketeers disbanded with the threat of imprisonment to all if one resists.
All for one, and one for all.
I'll say this now, Michael Wincott as Rochefort is just a brilliant bad guy. Through the majority of the film, he shows brief glimpses of the true evil, usually being the stone-cold assassin. But it's not until the final act where he lets himself go, and it's well worth the wait. With the Musketeers now disbanded, Rochefort informs Richelieu that 3 remain, the 3 being persons whom Rochefort himself holds a personal grudge against, and is ordered to bring them in immediately.
Athos, Porthos, Aramis.
Arriving on the outskirts of Paris, D'Artagnan shows his bravery, resourcefulness, and sexism by saving 2 women.
Do you have any idea what you've done?
I've saved you and your friend from these bandits.
These bandits are the Queen's own bodyguards.
And they got taken out by him, a kid, in this film. The Queen really needs to hire new bodyguards. This is also the introduction of Constance, the love interest of the film. I say love interest, but there really isn't much of a story to it. The story arc really feels forced in, as they barely have 3 scenes together through the whole film. But I guess being Disney, the film was trying to carry that fairy tale notion that it is possible to fall in love at first sight. Honestly, you could have taken out this subplot and it wouldn't have been missed, but thankfully the film doesn't dwell on this meeting and it is much better for it. Arriving in a very English-sounding Paris, hey, it's a fun film aimed at kids. If you want to dissect a film for being historically inaccurate, go and do it to Inglourious Bastards. D'Artagnan enters the former Musketeer headquarters and meets Kiefer Sutherland's Athos. D'Artagnan, being a rude, arrogant little prick, sets about endearing himself to the locals right from the off.
I just got here. You're not being very helpful.
The hero of the film, ladies and gentlemen. Saying that, if Kiefer Sutherland was in Jack Bauer mode now, he'd string him up by his chest hairs and then torture him with a spike. Taking exception to his rudeness, Athos challenges him to a duel, arranging the meeting for noon later that day. Ever the persistent one, Gerard arrives in Paris tracking D'Artagnan with his brothers, so our hero makes his escape, but through an accidental bump he earns the wrath of the mighty Porthos, played by a show-stealing Oliver Platt.
This sash was a gift to me from the Queen of America.
And clearly not having enough of a death wish, another duel is arranged, this one for 1 PM. The funny thing for me coming into this film, having me raised on the cartoon, I'd always thought of Porthos as the leader of the 3. He was referenced directly as being the leader in the cartoon. So to see Porthos here as the wacky, wisecracking adventurer did catch me a little off guard, but thanks to Platt's charismatic performance, I quickly got over that. The final Musketeer, Aramis, played by Charlie Sheen, is a man of God. No, I don't buy it. He's also a womanizer. Okay, I buy that. And seems to spend his days tutoring hot married women.
My husband.
You're married?
No, I definitely buy it.
You must pray for our sins.
I love that reaction. Making his escape from the window to the ground below, Aramis ends up atop of D'Artagnan.
Thank you. You broke my fall perfectly.
And even though Aramis apologises, D'Artagnan takes that step from arrogant shit who needs a kick-in to all-round complete idiot who needs a good mauling, and another duel is arranged, this one for 2 PM. He's been in town less than an hour, he's already got a group of brothers trying to kill him, and he's just arranged 3 separate duels. He's got a long journey ahead of him before he becomes likeable. Moving into the palace, we meet Queen Anne, played by the absolutely fine Gabrielle Anwar, and the obviously wigged King Louis, played by Hugh O'Connor. A couple married through arrangements, so they're not exactly soulmates for life, despite both of them being hornier than a porn star at a Hugh Hefner party. Louis is pretty pissed at Richelieu for dismissing the Musketeers without him getting to address them first, which plants in a few more seeds of the plot, namely that England and France are at war, and Richelieu is slowly taking over the kingdom and undermining the king.
I thought it best to act quickly.
I will be the judge of what is best
For me and for France.
See, when your wife looks like that, and looks at you like that, that's the moment you dismiss the whole room and take her to your room. You idiot! A little later at a private party, Rochefort arrives to arrest the three Musketeers, with this being the first chance we get to see them together as a trio, and a sign of the tensions that exist between the three and Rochefort.
Hello again, Cyclops.
See, it turns out Rochefort killed a Musketeer, and through testimony by Athos, Porthos and Aramis, he was removed from the guard.
You should know. 3 of you stood against me.
Arriving for their duel, D'Artagnan discovers his 3 opponents are all Musketeers, but having made the challenge, he prepares to battle Athos until the Cardinal's guards arrive to arrest the 3 men.
Only a fool would try and arrest us twice in one day.
You're under arrest.
A fool.
And this, being the first scene where we get to see the 3 Musketeers fight, allows for some truly fun moments, especially from Porthos and Aramis. And I remember this being the sequence when I first saw this in the cinema, where I actually started to get the tone the film was aiming for. This also begins the first of many an awesome Porthos moment. And as there are a few in the film, I really feel I should start a counter. Okay, go.
You come in peacefully and you intend to resist.
Oh, don't be so stupid. Of course we intend to resist. Just give us a moment, all right? 5 of them, 3 of us. Hardly seems fair.
Maybe we should give him a chance to surrender.
I love the reading show, with the reactions played at just the right pitch, and this is a scene that O'Donnell is effective in, because he's literally being pushed out of the picture. Deciding to stand with the Musketeers, there's a nice moment where he tells them his name, and from the reactions, you just know they've heard of his father. But as they're being arrested at this point, this really isn't the time to socialise.
Everyone acquainted? Now, we are prepared to resist you.
Pairing off, they made short work of the Cardinal's guards, but being wanted men, the Musketeers don't hang around.
You, boy, are arrogant, hot-tempered, and entirely too bold. I like that. Reminds me of me.
And knowing what an annoying hothead D'Artagnan is, they leave him, and within moments of them departing, Rochefort arrives with another pack of guards, and D'Artagnan, never the smartest kid at school,
Long live the Musketeers!
is knocked from his horse, knocked out, and arrested. And you just know they probably gave him a few good kicks while they were at it. Well, I'd like to imagine they did. I mean, it's not like he doesn't deserve it. In the dungeons, more plot is unveiled as Rochefort takes D'Artagnan's sword, and D'Artagnan, clearly having learnt his lesson from threatening 3 Musketeers and a small gaggle of Cardinal's guards, threatens Rochefort and gets knocked out again. Good God, kid, learn from your mistakes, damn it! Managing to escape the cells, he spies Richelieu meeting with Milady de Winter, played by the also fine Rebecca de Mornay, as he arranges a betrayal of the king by proposing an alliance with England, and is sending Milady to Calais, where she'll sail to England and have the Duke of Buckingham sign the treaty, all part of Richelieu's plan to put himself on the throne. Richelieu, ever the man of God, does seem to have a bit of trouble controlling his urges, though.
I was making an observation, not an offer.
D'Artagnan is discovered, but refuses to give up the Musketeers, and we get a huge hint to the identity of his father's killer.
D'Artagnan.
And due to him doing something noble for the first time in the film, he's sentenced to death. This was the first moment where I actually started to care for the character. He's not being cocky or confident, he's scared, but remaining brave in the face of certain death.
Fear not, my son. We are with you, always. All for one. One for all.
And having replaced the executioner and the priest with Athos providing transport, D'Artagnan is rescued as the Cardinal's guards give chase, allowing for some fun interplay between the 3 main actors again, and allows Platt to, once again, steal the scene.
They're firing at us!
Champagne?
We're in the middle of a chase, Porthos.
You're right. Something red.
Seriously, they could have built the whole film around him. Stealing the horses and setting fire to the carriage, which allows them to fully escape and put some distance between them and the guards, the plot now officially kicks in, as they set off to Calais to stop Milady from leaving France with the treaty, which would also prove that Richelieu is conspiring against the king. Not that he doesn't make it completely obvious, you know, but hey, it's a Disney film. Not to be outdone, Richelieu sends word to every bounty hunter in France to find and kill the 4 men. Stopping off for the night at a tavern, it's the first chance the 4 are able to bond on a non-confrontational level, and allows them to get very, very drunk. Porthos teaches D'Artagnan the art of seduction and kissing, Aramis teaches him the art of poetry and seduction, and we get some nice little hints into Athos's backstory, as he retells the story of a count who gave up his title and land after turning in his wife after discovering she was marked for death for killing a man, a crime she swore she was innocent of.
When the guards came to take her away, to be executed, she was still professing her undying love.
And as with most Disney films, this personal moment is then injected with a dose of comedy.
Ooh, may I have the stats?
What are friends for? I really do like this sequence, and it's one of my favourites of the film. It's one of the first times D'Artagnan is humble among his peers, and it makes him a much more appealing character. And it manages an interesting switch, moving from the comedy of Porthos and Aramis teaching D'Artagnan to the personal moment of Athos, before moving back to the comedy to close it off. It's also nice to see Athos actually smile in the film. At the palace, the Queen and Constance converse over love and their feelings for the men they have in their lives, or in Constance's case, the man she's only met once and shared a conversation with that lasted less than a minute. Dear God, I hope Lindsay never watches this film.
But I don't understand why you feel this way.
Me neither. The guy's an idiot. And on leaving the bath, Richelieu enters the chamber and robes the Queen, trying to be as subtle as possible in his approach.
I want you to consider, to know, all that we might accomplish together. For France.
And I bet you're all sitting there now thinking, how can they not know he's evil? Well, I felt exactly the same way when I saw The Two Towers for the first time, and I saw that Théoden had a subject called Wormtongue in his courts. Face it, sometimes royalty is just stupid. The next day, while riding off their hangovers, a cannonball attack forces the group to separate, with Athos and D'Artagnan going one way, Porthos and Aramis the other. While sheltering in the woods, Athos horse is shot, and faced with overwhelming odds, he orders D'Artagnan to leave him and head for Calais, and despite D'Artagnan's protests, he eventually obeys.
I'll never forget you.
Go!
Now, as an adult, I can look at this and know Athos will be fine, but my 11-year-old self was on the edge of my seat by this point, not actually sure if Athos would survive, and funnily enough, I do remember a similar scene from the cartoon, only that one involved Aramis sending D'Artagnan away while he made a final stand. Back at the palace, Louis finally calls Richelieu on all the rumours he's been hearing about him.
There are so many to choose from.
And at a fun moment, Richelieu reels off everything he's pretty much been doing through the entire film.
Teach pigs to dance and horses to fly.
Well, save for that, in an attempt to dismiss the whispers of the palace. Curry is especially good here as he puts a wall between the king and queen and manipulates them both, with the obvious solution here being all it would take is for the queen to tell the king he made a pass at her in the bath chamber. But like every romantic comedy or soap opera storyline that came before or since, this doesn't happen. Remember, at this point in time, France is full of English-speaking men and women. You keep suspending that disbelief, people. Later that evening, having ridden for the whole day, D'Artagnan collapses on the road and is discovered by sheer coincidence by Milady's coach, where he is taken on board and awakens to a pretty captivating sight. You just know as soon as he opened his eyes he thanked the Lord right there. Wait. What is he doing? What are you doing, you idiot? Get back in that bed right now! Oh, what a dick. Remember all those things I said about D'Artagnan starting to become a more appealing character? Yeah, I take it all back. He's an idiot. Now, seemingly on a roll as far as idiocy goes, he confesses his mission to Milady, which goes down well, and she tries to kill him. Fighting her off, he discovers the mark on her shoulder, branded to those who are to be put to death. Yeah, she's Athos's wife. Lucky bugger. So her guards tackle him, and he somehow talks himself out of it.
You can kill me, but a surprise waits for you that even Buckingham can't prevent.
I really don't know how that works. I'd have been...
You can kill me!
Okay. Sparing his life and deciding to take him with her, the lady is forced to leave the inn as she's also being tracked by the sibling of a man she actually did kill. Arriving at the boat bound for England, they discover the whole crew is dead.
Not all of us.
Which leads to another fight and, you guessed it, some great Porthos moments.
Porthos the pirate!
I told you I was famous.
And probably my favourite Porthos moment in the whole film. If there's ever any doubt that Oliver Platt was just having the time of his life with this role, that one sequence should be proof enough. While the battle continues, Milady attempts to escape and encounters a returning Athos, battle-scarred, but alive. And in a scene right out of 24, Athos holds a gun to Milady and demands she hands over the treaty.
I will shoot.
See, if he were Jack Bauer, he'd have already shot her by now. Actually, now that I think about it, this film not only inspired Pirates, it inspired Battlefield Earth and 24. That's a hell of a legacy. With the treaty in their possession, they learn Richelieu plans a demonstration of his power, and with Milady now arrested and sentenced to death, she first asks Athos to spare her life, and when he can't, she refuses to tell of Richelieu's plans.
What has this world ever done for me?
The next morning at a cliff top, Milady prepares to receive her sentence, but as the executioner raises his sword, Athos halts him and begs forgiveness for casting her aside all those years ago. She finally forgives him, and still very much in love with him, she unveils Richelieu's plans.
The cardinal intends to assassinate the king on Friday at his birthday celebration.
Before throwing herself from the cliff top to her death. I've got to say, even though it's a Disney film, that is a pretty heavy scene right there. Keep in mind, this is long before the days of kids being hung in pirate movies. Although, as many people in the comment sections did say, those films weren't marketed towards children. Sorry, Maddie, they weren't. But still, having the romantic subplot be resolved by one of the party committing suicide, it was a bit of a surprise to see in a Disney film, helped along by a very haunting score. With Richelieu's plan now known and the treaty in their possession, the four head back to Paris, rallying the troops along the way, while Richelieu prepares for the assassination. And going back to the point I made earlier about how no one can tell that Cardinal Richelieu is evil, I bet there's people sitting there now and thinking, why doesn't somebody run and tell the king that the cardinal's in the courtyard with a portrait of the king with a bullet hole through his head? And to answer that, I simply say, can you see anybody else in the vicinity? No. Good. We can move on. Arriving back in Paris on the day of the intended assassination, the Musketeers spread out, and while standing in the crowd, D'Artagnan spots the assassin opposite the royal box. Why couldn't he just use one of the windows, I hear you ask? The same reason people in Scream don't carry guns. Yes, I do read your comments. While the king leads his queen out onto the balcony, D'Artagnan reaches the assassin just in time. Why he didn't just call up before the king came out onto the balcony is something I'm sure many a person has asked. But, as we've already established D'Artagnan's a bit of an idiot, that's that problem sorted right there. While D'Artagnan battles the assassin, the three Musketeers confront Richelieu, who attempts to frame them for the attempted murder.
Kill those Musketeers! Trying to murder the king!
And in a moment I'm sure George Lucas watched at one point and went, the entire Musketeer unit arrived. Good God, this film even inspired Attack of the Clones. Yes, I know, this has been seen in many a film. It's a joke, people!
Save the king!
And so begins the mother of all fights, and I wouldn't feel right if I didn't throw in another awesome Porthos moment. Spotting D'Artagnan battling the assassin, a well-placed crossbow shot dispatches him and takes the battle inside the palace, where Richelieu attempts to escape with the king and queen as hostages, only for Aramis to confront Richelieu, first attempting to arrest him, which Richelieu obviously scoffs at, so Aramis tries the religious approach.
And you'll answer to God.
No, I can't really see him going for that myself. And with the battle now raging through the palace, Richelieu abducts the king and queen and takes them through a secret passage, leaving Rochefort and Athos to finally face off.
I hope we're not interrupted.
On the contrary, you're right on time.
And this is where Michael Wincott is allowed to just let loose with the evil side of Rochefort, and, like I said earlier, it's well worth the wait, as he's not only a kick-ass swordsman, but he really seems to be getting off on it. I mean, just listen to the noises he makes while fighting. Dude is seriously messed up. He also matches Athos blow for blow and pretty much kicks his ass all around the chamber. Athos does manage to finally disarm him, which allows D'Artagnan to reclaim his father's sword and sets up a final duel between the two, something Rochefort really seems to get off on. Porthos, meanwhile, spots the fallen Aramis, and in my favourite moment of the entire film, he drops the adventurer persona and just surges towards his fallen friend. The fact that the Joker of the group can suddenly turn serious helps put over the impact of this sequence more than music or direction ever could. And by having him and Athos just show concern, just cements the feelings these three men have for each other. And it's accomplished so simply. No long awkward stares or tales of adventures we've never seen them go on. It's just one character showing concern for the other.
Is he dead?
Of course he isn't dead, and any cynical 16 to 30-year-old would sit there and say, I called that, but the 11-year-old in me at the time, I was just relieved.
There is a God.
And the three united, they head off after Richelieu, entering the dungeons that we saw in the film's opening, and faced with three paths, isn't that always the way? They separate. Back in the palace, D'Artagnan continues his duel with Rochefort, but the guy is seriously outmatched in every single way. And I like that. It's already been established in his battle with Athos that Rochefort is a master swordsman, so he should be able to kick D'Artagnan's ass. It also does lead to another moment where I'm sure George Lucas went, again while watching this. Now, you may think I'm actually bashing the Star Wars prequels by stating all this, but no. No, that could not be further from the truth. Little in-joke here. Rochefort finally manages to disarm D'Artagnan and then drops the bombshell.
Killed by the same man that killed his father.
You killed my father?
What a twist!
Yeah, the film never really makes it a bit of a secret who killed his father, but then D'Artagnan is just a bit of an idiot. While monologuing, Rochefort doesn't spot Constance, remember her, at the bottom of the stairs, and as he raises his sword to deliver the killer blow, she slides D'Artagnan his sword, and he manages to stab Rochefort, which kills him and avenges his father. Sad to see him go, as Rochefort was a much more subtle and darker villain when compared to Tim Curry's moustache-twirling cardinal, but I'm just happy they allowed him to really shine in the final battle, and not treat him like a joke or an afterthought, unlike a certain Megatron in a certain third installment of a trilogy, thank you very much, Michael Bay. Back in the dungeons, Porthos encounters a... well... there you go, he said it, not me. And after a quick battle, he manages to dispatch him, first by slamming him into some spikes, which doesn't do the trick, so he adds a final touch.
Ooh, nasty.
No gallons of blood though, this is still a Disney film, remember? And still chasing the king and queen, he catches up with Athos as he battles Richelieu's guards, but they're a little too late to stop Richelieu getting into his boat with both the king and queen as hostages.
I will return twice as strong. I think not.
Taking out the guards on the boat, Aramis advances on Richelieu, only for the king to halt him and deliver the final blow himself, which knocks Richelieu into the sewer water, and yeah, that's it. Very anticlimactic. Which is my only real problem with the film. Richelieu is built up as such a shit that you really want to see him get it, and while seeing the king lay one on him is satisfying, just having him fall into the sewer water and apparently drown, although I never told it, just doesn't feel like a good payoff. The country's saved, the film closes with D'Artagnan being made a musketeer, kissing Constance, thank God that storyline was included, and with a final appearance and challenge from Gerard, the musketeers unite and chase him and his brothers, where they probably massacred them. Hey, we never see it. So, you know, it could have happened. And that's The Three Musketeers. Like I said, it's a film best viewed for its fun factor. Don't go into it taking it seriously or querying everything you see, otherwise you'll come away with a list of questions longer than Charlie Sheen's conquests. The film is played as a romp, with the main cast having a ball with their characters and situations. It's one of those turn your brain off movies and just enjoy the action and on-screen chemistry between the actors. Tim Curry hams it up gloriously as Cardinal Richelieu, and Michael Wincock just oozes menace as Rochefort. The romantic subplot, like I said, does seem forced in, and as far as the secondary characters go, they hold no interest or any chemistry at all. But thankfully, the film doesn't focus on them. The heart of the story is the Musketeers, and they just steal the show, especially Oliver Platt. And it is quite fun now to watch the film, and see the amount of films, shows and scenarios that could be linked to its characters and scenes in retrospect. Next week will be my last video for a while, because I'm going back to full-time work over the Christmas period. But I intend to go out with a bang. I intend to lay down divine intervention, and to kick ass for the Lord. Next week, I'm reviewing Braindead.